Hare Krishna, everyone, all the participants. I welcome all of you. And I'm seeing all of you are very excited to attend the class Leadership and Spirituality with more enthusiasm, vigor, and conviction. So, a quick recap I would give that yesterday's class, Prabhu described about purpose, perspective, and grand vision and plan. And that should be very noble and sublime. And purpose is something which drives us every day, and it enhances our capability, our efficiency, our productivity, everything. So like this, very nicely Prabhu gave the quotation from different philosophers, scholars, scientists, like that. He quoted the statement of Einstein also, that I'm not looking for spectrum of this or that, I'm looking for how God created this universe. And then grand unification theory of Stephen Hawking, and the difference between two, that Einstein said how question, and Hawking said why God created this universe and why we are there. So more than how, the important is why we do exist. Anyway, how God created, that is one very good question, very good inquiry. But why God created, what is the purpose, mission behind all this creation, is even advanced question which Hawkins put forward. And two most important days in our life is the day when we took birth, and another day when we find out why we took birth. So this was the quotation by Mark Twain. So like this, Prabhu went on speaking about different understanding of scholars, philosophers. And in Harvard Business School, what was the their essay, they had written something about purpose and vision in life. So yesterday we understood this. Those who did not attend the class of yesterday, they can attend the class without fail. Otherwise, you will miss many important points. So today we are going to continue from some same where we had stopped yesterday. Before we start, let us chant some prayers and then we'll continue. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. So now I'm going to start the session again, leadership and spirituality. So I request everyone to again you be with your copy and pen and keep writing, noting down all those important points, which is very much striking to all of you, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Striking to all of you, and then we'll discuss it. Okay.
Our school
striking
college,
to all of you,
a certain perspective,
and then we'll discuss it. Okay.
Writing habit came about, they say 3,000 years ago. Our school, and they say, we are told that the emergence of the writing habit signals the emergence of new intelligence in the world. But actually the Vedic perspective is that no, the emergence of the writing habit signals the deterioration of intelligence, and so they had to create a writing habit. So So among Veda Vyasa, a very, very exalted sage, was chosen to put all of this knowledge in a written form. And what did he do? Like, say, for instance, in today's world, if we were to suppose there is a professor of mathematics, and then we say that we understand mathematical knowledge is very important in the society, and so Professor so-and-so, advanced mathematics, can you come up with a plan how we can perpetuate and how we can teach mathematical knowledge in the society, because mathematics is so important. So the professor will say, okay, give me a month's time, I'll come with a plan. And then maybe after a month, he'll come back and say, I realize that mathematics is very important. So we have to teach mathematics at a very young age in life. And I have come up with a plan. I have got many others who will help me create textbooks. We will create a textbook for elementary mathematics, primary school mathematics. We will also create high school mathematics textbooks. We will also create college level mathematics. We will create graduation level. We will create post-graduation level. We will also create journals for cutting edge research in mathematics or something like that. That's what a professor would do. Vedavyasa was doing something very, very similar. He was actually curating the entire corpus of knowledge that was prevalent at that time. And as a professor would do, from elementary to more and more advanced and to the most advanced level of knowledge, Vedavyasa did very much the same. He wrote the 4 Vedas, which actually deals with how we can get the necessities of life in a righteous path, so that the world can have their requirements and also be regulated in their lives. So those were considered to be the elementary Vedic knowledge. Then he had the Upanishads, and which had more philosophical content, more advanced knowledge. Then some of these philosophical concepts, to appreciate better, to understand better, you need some kind of an examples of these things, right? Somebody who practiced those principles. And that's exactly what Vedavyasa did in the form of the Puranas. They were actually histories and narrations of great sages and great kings who had lived those elevated spiritual principles and concepts and how they handled different things in life. So he put all of them in the form of the Puranas. And then Vedavyasa was also a witness to what was happening between Krishna and the Pandavas and all of that. So he wrote that in the form of the Mahabharata. And after writing all of that, he wanted to next distill the most advanced aspects of knowledge. And he called that the Vedanta. Veda means knowledge, Anta means end or the ultimate. So he distilled that, and his most exalted work of Vedavyasa is the Vedanta. And he put that in the form of sutras. That's another interesting thing which I will not go into today, for another occasion maybe. So there were different kinds of formats in Sanskrit literature. A sutra was one of them, and he used the sutras to present the Vedanta, the ultimate of the Vedic knowledge. So now you see that how there is a hierarchy of Vedic knowledge, and Vedanta is considered to be the highest. What Krishna did in the Bhagavad Gita was he invokes the same Vedantic argument in a very succinct manner and presents it to Arjuna in a very short while. And when he hears that Vedantic perspective of life, now Arjuna is charged with a new understanding. I remember when I was in school, I used to read. I was told that when you learn quantum mechanics, you will get a new perspective, or you'll have a new understanding of life. You look at the world in a different way. Of course, there may be truth to that. But of course, definitely when you learn from the Vedantic perspective, then you will get certainly a certain understanding of who we are, what the universe is, what all of this is. And that was the perspective Krishna presented to Arjuna. Arjuna was thinking that it's his personal problem. It's his personal family problem. It's a problem among the brothers, their Pandavas and their cousin. So his understanding was very limited. So he was thinking that how do we solve this, my personal problem? Now Krishna presented a new perspective. It's not just your personal problem. There is another purpose for this creation. And there is a certain purpose that why I have come to this world. And I have a certain larger purpose, a cosmogonal purpose, a purpose of cosmic scale, and I want you to play a certain role in that. And when Arjuna heard that kind of a perspective, he said, oh my Lord, this is what you expect me to do. In fact, someone may say, okay, it was a very unique case Krishna was there, Arjuna was there, and Krishna presented to him a cosmogonal perspective of life and the universe, and then Arjuna woke up. In fact, in the 18th chapter, the last chapter of the Gita, Krishna begins to conclude in a certain way. And there are, Gita has many acharyas writing commentaries on that, because this is very profound and it is pregnant with meaning. And you need help of acharyas who have actually perfected this understanding to help us. So there are a lot of annotations. They're called tika or bhashya in Sanskrit tradition. So these acharyas have written, pointing out some of the statements that Krishna makes towards the conclusion of the Gita. Actually, what Arjuna went through, what Arjuna experienced, it was not that Arjuna was one lone fortunate person who had the advice and the counsel of Krishna himself, and we are all common mortals abandoned here far from Krishna without any opportunity to get that knowledge. No. There is actually, Krishna opens up a door in the 18th chapter and welcomes, and he says, each one of us can become as fortunate as Arjuna and understand this larger purpose and perspective of life and become involved in Krishna's cosmogonal purpose, that even now we can become participants and become involved and engaged in that larger mission and perspective of life. So these are some of the very interesting things that Krishna brings up in the Bhagavad Gita. And another way of looking at this is, if you carefully read the Gita, there are about 20 concepts that Krishna develops. Maybe 18, 19, 20 concepts. And he describes these concepts from different perspectives, and Arjuna gets clouded with some doubts, and then he asks him, and then Krishna further clarifies, and this back and forth conversation happens. And in this conversation, Krishna develops about 20 concepts, let's say. And then Krishna asks Arjuna to see the world and his situation and the world through the prism of those 20 concepts. And when Arjuna sees the world, his situation and the world through the prism of those 20 concepts, he now is charged with a new energy and a new understanding, that he now sees that there is a higher purpose to the whole thing. So this is exactly what Krishna did to Arjuna. And if we also get to learn and understand and appreciate these few concepts from the Gita and see the world through those concepts, then we get another tapestry of reality that we become aware of. I mentioned about 20 concepts. The first concept that Krishna talks about, I will not go into the 20 concepts. You don't have to fear, it might take a long time. I'll just mention about the first concept. The first concept that Krishna talks about is understanding of our identity, of who we really are. Who am I? What is my identity? Earlier we were talking about purpose in life, and Krishna, I'm saying, begins with identity. In fact, going back to that article, that essay by the two professors, they say, at its core, your leadership purpose springs from your identity, the essence of who you are. So there is an important link between our identity, understanding of our identity, and the purpose of life and the purpose of our creation and so on. So spirituality begins with understanding of our true identity, of the essence of what we are. Because we usually go around leading a life or of our own, having a self-definition of ourselves as it is crafted and taught to us by the environment around us. So we need to revisit this at a very fundamental level to understand who we are. And that's how Krishna also begins to explain about who we are, the core of our being. How does this understanding of the identity and the purpose of the universe come about? What is the relationship? You see, the first thing is that we all would like to define our personal purpose. What is the purpose in my life? And what is the more elevated, sublime purpose that I can have in my life. Then naturally we are all part of a certain family. Then we will think of the purpose of our family. Then we are part of a community. We can think about the purpose of the community. And then on a bigger scale, purpose of our country. And then our country, and then global purpose. And expanding it further, there is a universal purpose of the universe. Now, usually what happens is that all of these purposes individually that we have and collectively at different levels, all of these purposes come into conflict with each other within our lives. And also because we all function as individuals, each one of us having our own individual conceptions and purposes, all of these concepts will conflict with each other. Suppose there is a lake, very nice, tranquil water, and I go and throw a stone. My stone will create ripples. You go and throw another stone. Your stone also will create ripples, and the ripples your stone created and the ripples my stone created come and clash and interfere. If I were to throw a stone at one point and you come and throw your stone at precisely the same point, then the ripples that my stone and your stone creates don't interfere, they only reinforce further and expand. That's the difference between misaligned purposes and a very aligned purpose. Now we are talking about individual purpose, collective purpose, global purpose, universal purpose, and all of us having that one single purpose, if we can align that. This is the perspective that spirituality brings. How we can align. There is a wonderful formula, there's a wonderful understanding by which my own personal purpose and the purpose of the world and the universe can all be aligned with this new understanding. And hence we can have a very harmonious world. Spirituality gives a framework that harmonizes and aligns all of these purposes, personal to the grand universal purpose. Now, obviously, that understanding is not there today in the world. And as a result, we have created a very, very messy situation. I'm sure you are familiar with this study. A group of scientists did this study, and they said, if the whole world were to embrace Western standards of living, like, the American standard, the European standard, like the developed nations standard, the levels of consumption and all of that, the study pointed out that we will need 4 Earths for us to manage. And obviously we have just one, and it's also in bad shape. So it very clearly indicates that this is not a sustainable civilization. I came across another study which said, in the last 20 years, we have become more environment conscious in the world. Even the younger generation, they're all talking about environment. The younger generation is also very conscious of ecological degradation that's happening. This study pointed out that the environmental degradation that we have brought about in the last 20 years is greater than the degradation that we have brought about in the last 120 years. This study also pointed out, imagine, so all this degradation has happened in the last 300 years or so. Let's imagine, for instance, if human race ends now for whatever reason, hypothetically. So we don't degrade and mess up the world anymore. For the world to come back to its original state, it will take 300,000 years. So the mess we have created in 300 years, Earth will take 300,000 years to come back to its pristine state. There's another awareness, you might have read about this, microplastics, and how the microplastics, it you might be aware that plastics are dumped in the oceans. And they found there was one place where plastics had aggregated from the Pacific Ocean. And they found that the quantity of plastic that was aggregated, it was twice the size of Australia. And what scientists had not predicted was that in salt water, plastic dissolves and degrades in a certain way. And the fishes, and it gets into the live system there. And then when people eat fishes, and those fishes are actually carrying those microplastics, and that enters into the human food chain. So all kinds of complications that we have never had anticipated. So the world is in a very bad state. We need an alternative perspective. We need an alternative narrative. We need to infuse some new understanding about this world. This conventional understanding will not work. I was talking, just a week ago, I was talking to one very successful corporate professional. I think he's from one of the IIMs in our country. He was telling me, he knows us well, and he was telling me, Prabhu, I tell you, growth is an euphemism for greed. We talk about growth, but actually it's another word for greed. But that's what the world is all about. If the GDP is going down, everyone becomes alarmed. Governments change because of the GDP story. That's the way it is. More and more consumption, more and more exploitation. Are we going in the right direction? Is this the best way? Can we have a world with clean water, clean air, clean earth for our next generation of people? The current understanding, the current perspective will definitely cannot promote that. We need something alternate. We need an alternative. Now, when we talk about spirituality, I'm sure for many of you, seeing my robes and seeing my attire and all of this, a thought may come to your mind. What is the connection between religion and spirituality? About 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was talking to one gentleman, and then I didn't know him much, and then I was supposed to travel with him for the next 2 hours or so, and then I was supposed to talk to him, and I was not too sure, and then first time I heard this expression, now of course it's very, very common. He said, I am not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. That was the first time I heard, and it was not very clear to me what, and then I began to understand. 2 years ago, I attended one annual gathering of AAR, American Academy of Religions. It's a very big academy. They meet once a year in different parts of America. Mostly about 10,000 religion scholars come together and have a 5-day conferences and seminars and all of that. And so 2 years ago, when that happened, I came across one entire panel discussion about a new movement that is emerging in the Western world. It's called the SBNR movement. SBNR stands for Spiritual but Not Religious Movement. So, very understandably, people are now more interested in spirituality and not religion. Because I remember once I was traveling with with a guy, and then this guy, big white guy, looked at me up and down, and I was small when compared to him. And then he said, are you some religious guy? And I said, yes, I'm a monk from India. And he said, oh, I served in the American army for some 10 years, 12 years or something. And when I was in the army, we studied a lot of history. And one thing we found was that 90% of the wars in the world were fought because of religion. And so I became an atheist. And so on. So this is the kind of an understanding a lot of people have. Religion brings conflicts to the fore, and then there is wars and all of this happening. And we see that even today around the world. So I was in one conference a year ago in Italy on comparative religion. And I was presenting some of the ideas from India. And there was a gathering, and there were scholars from Christianity, Jewish tradition, Islam, and all of that. And we were all talking about comparative religions and all of that. One thing I found out was, their talk was that, you see, if you take different religions, you cannot help it. There are differences in these different religions. The way they look at things, the prescriptions for religious conduct, and all of that. And their whole dialogue, their conversation was around that we must recognize that there are differences, and we must learn to respect these differences. That's a more civilized way of living. I told them that I disagree with you, and we have a different perspectives that we want to bring to you from India. And so they said, what? And then I told them, actually, the core of every religion is spirituality. But very often, the spirituality is not understood, and it is not appreciated. And people focus on the differences. We must understand how these different religions came about. 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was in Nazareth and Jerusalem and all of that, or Prophet Muhammad in other parts of Mecca and all of those. Those days, cultures did not coexist. There was no communication between each other as it is today. With few rupees, I can make a phone call to somebody in America. It was not possible those days. So these great teachers of religion taught religion in those isolated cultures and geographies, and in a certain language, and hence, taking into considerations the audience that they were addressing, they had to present that core spirituality with certain practices which was more practical and possible for that section of people. One happening in deserts of Arabia, another happening in some other parts of Israel and Nazareth and all of that. It was very, very different. And they had to teach as much. Suppose I'm a mathematics professor. I know a lot of mathematics. And you take me to a primary school and you tell, and there are 100 small children, second grade children. And then you tell me, Professor, can you please teach some mathematics to these children? And I may know very advanced mathematics. Now I'll wonder, all small tiny kids. What do I tell them? Obviously, I can't teach them advanced mathematics. I'll tell them there is a basket full of 2 apples, and there's another basket of 3 apples, and I put all the apples into one basket. How many apples? Maybe the children can answer that question. Right? My talking will be a function of my audience. I adjust my talk according to my audience. All of you are very elevated people, so I can speak very elevated topics to you. So, in the same way, these teachers of religions, of the ancient traditional world religions, they were very, very spiritually elevated, but they could teach only to the extent that the audience could appreciate. In fact, there is one statement in the Bible. Jesus says, I have many more things to tell you, but you are not ready to hear them. So, these religions, the core of all of these religions is the same spirituality. There is a higher purpose in life. We should not be greedy. Life in this world, as we know, to maximize the pleasures is not the be-all and end-all of life. There is something much more. There is an understanding of transcendence. There is an understanding of the experience of transcendence. And that is the core. And that's common to all religions. Differences are in the practices. So, there is the core and there is a peripheral aspect of every religion. And the peripheral aspects may be different between different religions. So when I presented this idea to those scholars of religion, they were not very happy. They said, no, we don't want to. Our religion is your religion. And then they are different and we should just appreciate the differences and lead a life and go on with respect to each other. So what we understand from Indian perspective is that there is a spiritual core, and that core is what is very, very genuine and common to all religions. Almost time, I think. What was the time limit? Sorry. With question answer. Okay, I'll be conscious. You may also know there is one famous scientist. Some people say he's famous and some people say he's infamous. Richard Dawkins. and an English scientist who passed away recently. And he wrote a book about his own life, his experiences. And he called that book An Appetite for Wonder, the Making of a Scientist. And his whole book was that about how he grew up and in colonial Africa, and then later on in Oxford, and the family. And that appetite to wonder about the world was the one which actually made him a scientist. I was reflecting on this idea that an appetite for wonder makes somebody a scientist. And then, when I started thinking about spiritual concepts, or scientific concepts for that matter, there is one idea I want to share with you. Maybe you are familiar with this, what is called the fine-tuning of the universe. Scientists have recognized there are about 24 constants, very fundamental constants, like the charge of an electron, the mass of an electron, the gravitational constant, speed of light, and so on. Scientists recognize that these 24 constants are so critical. There's one study which says that if any of these constants were different by 1 billion billionth, that is 10 power minus 18, if they were even a little bit different, we would not have the Big Bang and the evolution of the universe and the emergence of life the way it is today. So they call this the fine-tuning of the universe. It looks like the universe was fine-tuned to come about. Somehow these constants were fine-tuned and the universe has come about. So when you look at these kind of things, and I must share another small story. I know a family in Mumbai, and I had visited them some years ago. They are a South Indian family, and they were very pious people. And so the young husband and the young wife, they were talking to me, and they said that, Prabhuji, we have brought up our children very, we have a puja room, we take our children, we told them they should chant some shlokas and all of that. But now our children have grown up and they have become teenagers, and they're asking all kinds of questions, and I'm not able to answer them. And so I told them, sometime, I'll find something. And then just as we were talking, the doorbell rang, and then they went and opened the door, and two energetic teenagers ran into the living room. And then the mother said, come here, talk to see the Prabhu. You ask all those kind of questions. No, you asked. I could see they were from good school, and probably high school, and they had, and then they were very shy, obviously. And then the mother said, no, you ask all your questions, and they didn't want to ask. And then the mother told me, restated their question. They asked me, Prabhuji, they asked this question, why should we pray to God? And so I was thinking, how do I tell these energetic teenager children going to probably some international school or something, and how do I tell them? Then I asked them, if somebody gives you something very valuable, very interesting, very wonderful, something that you like it, and then somebody gives that to you and presents that to you, and you receive that, you accept that, and then what do you say? And they said, thank you. Good schooling. And so I told them, suppose I give you something very valuable, very interesting, very important for you, something that you like, and I give it to you, and you accept that, and then you just walk away. What do we say that? And immediately the younger one said, bad manners. Then I told them, in the same way, God has given us so many things. The water we drink, it's not, municipality didn't create the water. It's a water that was already there. They brought it to our doorstep. The air that we breathe, the earth from which we get all the food, all of these are God's creation. And we get all of these things. And if we take all these things and accept all these things, and we don't even say thank you to God, what do you call that? Then it was clear to them. So I told them that prayer is a form of thanking God and being thankful and being grateful to God for providing all these things. And then I began to explain a little more to the parents, and they were also hearing and all of that. You see, anything you use in this world, you actually have to pay for it. I'm sure all of us have mobile phones, and every month they send us a bill, and if you don't pay the bill, a connection can get terminated. We use electricity in our homes, we use water, we have to pay the electricity bill, the water bill. You are staying in a rented house, you have to pay the rent to the landlord. You stay in a hotel, you stay for 3 nights and come out, as you walk out, they will give you a bill. For everything we use, we have to pay. But look at this. The oxygen that we are is so important for all of us. Did anyone give us an oxygen bill? Did anyone give us a solar bill to pay? Even the water bill, as I said, it's the cost of bringing the water. Cost of water is not included in that bill. So we get all of these things free. Not just that. We don't realize these things. How important gravity is for us. See, gravity is a very interesting phenomenon. It keeps all of us on the surface. If the gravity did not exist, all of us would be rising up like helium balloons. And if you have to sit on a seat, you have to buckle up and you can't walk easily. The gravitational force is a neat thing. It brings us all, and then we can only have to worry about the horizontal movement. And it's not just that there are many. We have right amount mixed.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So now we cannot again continue today also. Still half an hour lecture is remaining. Time is not there. Time is running very fast, but there are so many things to learn. So we have decided that maybe tomorrow we can continue the class. As I told that this class is about 1 hour 40 minutes. And I have put it into fast forwarding that to 1.25. Therefore, we are able to complete it. Otherwise, it would have taken more than 4 class. So what should we do? We should tomorrow again play this lecture, or what is your opinion, understanding? I want from your side. And by the way, what is your interest? How are you feeling this lecture after hearing? So you can just describe to me. And whether we should play it again tomorrow, the same class, because for me it is becoming more and more interesting, but I want your input also. What is your input? Tomorrow, please continue, Prabhu. Saurav Prasad. Those who want to play, can you all raise your hands again? Tomorrow we want to play. Sheza, interesting and enlightening. So all of you want that we should play again tomorrow, the same class. Very nice to see all of you, very enthusiastic, excited to hear the insight, the transcendental wisdom. Prabhu is a very now and then he is relating science, Bhagavad Gita, with scientific discoveries, the concept and theories of the scientists, what they have given. So it becomes more of interest, like the concept of prayer. So nicely Prabhu made those students to understand that, yes, why should we pray to God? Many times we become very agnostic, and anybody who goes to the temple and prays to God, we think, oh, what he is doing, all nonsense. This is not required. Why we should go and hold hand in front of statue and stone, which is apparently it is stone, not moving, nothing, and holding your hand. So very nicely Prabhu explained what should be our understanding and mood. So like this, what happens when we keep hearing such lectures, understanding, so our basics of spirituality becomes very clear. Basics of purpose of life becomes very clear. And as we also understood that it is very important, extremely important, the important to have purpose, meaning in life, because that drives us and that makes our life meaningful. Otherwise, without purpose, I'll give my example. Suppose you are in college now all of you are from college students, and suppose you have come to your college and got engaged in different activities in the college, but forgot what is your real purpose, why you have come to the college. The very purpose of your coming to the college, that is to complete your degree, BTech or graduation or post graduation, and get good job. If this very purpose when you forget, then what will happen in your life? Just think of it. And you are engaged in the college 24 hours in playing footballs, volleyball, and you are playing different games, inter hall, inter hostels, this cricket match, that match, and all of us are very much busy, and going to swim, gymkhana, and doing all, throwing all our hand left and right, going to swimming pool and learning swimming. All these things we are learning in our college, but we are not doing for which we have come in the college. So what will happen to us? Now you understand what would happen to all of us. In fourth year, when placement time will come, then you will be shattered. You will cry, but there will be no tears, because you did not focus on the purpose, very purpose now. And it will become very much evident when you are in fourth year. Everybody is, they are sitting in the placement and they're getting good placement, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. And you are a person who 4 year, you did not focus on the purpose. You were just involved and engrossed into all kinds of other activities. You became hall president also, you became hostel president, this president, that. You became the organizer of the events, this event you are organizing, that, everything you did, but you did not focus on the purpose, very purpose for which you came in the college. Then what will happen in fourth year? You can understand, those who are in fourth year, they can understand what would happen to them. You'll try to cry, but there will be no tears. You'll be, your life, it will be appearing to you that my life is doomed now. In the same way, we all are human beings. We are here in this world. There is well-defined goal, purpose in our life. And if we don't understand, as this scientist, one of the scientists, what was his name? Mark Twain, he said that there are two most important days in our life. One is when we took birth, another, we try to find out why we took birth. So if we don't find out what is the purpose, then what will happen to us? At the end, we will be lost. At the time of death, then realization will come. Don't worry. At the time of death, we will realize that what I have done in my life. So very important for all of us to understand the purpose. So yes, we may do all other activities. Just like in the college, you may go for playing, you may go for doing gym, you may go for swimming, all those things. You may go to do some kind of frivolous activity, maybe little bit here and there. But apart from all these things, we are always conscious for which I have come here. You are always conscious of course, study, class, going to class will start from 8 to 5. You're all conscious. In the same way, we have to be engaged in our activities, duties, but at the same time, we should be conscious of our purpose and goal in life. And we should be continuously, progressively, we should be moving forward to achieve that goal. And Bhagavad Gita gives the understanding of that purpose and goal. Okay, so now time is, there is always time constraint. So doesn't matter. So tomorrow we'll continue again from the same time where we stopped today. And I request all of you to be on time again tomorrow as you were there today. And if possible, you can bring your friends also. Maybe newcomers may like very much more than us, because it is presented in a very scientific way. Okay, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Today I would like to meet Somen. So I request Somen to be there, and the rest of you can continue with their activities. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, can you please clear one concept, that is the difference between the spirituality and the religion?
spirituality and religion.
Yes.
Saurav, you are asking this question.
Yes.
Can we take up this question tomorrow because we are running short of time? Tomorrow we'll take up.
Okay. Definitely.
Anna? Okay.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Saumen.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.